Philly fam? I'm back. I'm back. I'm back.
I got me a special guest today, man, and he gonna surprise y'all, dog. He is very, very, to me, prominent on the content creator site. I watch a lot of his videos. You probably watch a lot of his videos. I'm gonna pop him in. He gonna give us some evaluation on OTAs and these players, man, because I need some insight. I need to know. I'm guessing, I'm hoping, but he's an ex-coach, and I think he was a good guy because I could tell how he talk about the players that he gave his all to the game, and he's now giving us the same thing he gave to the game. So y'all welcome in Gate City, man.
What's up,
How
man?
you
How you
doing
doing?
today, Gate? I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. You know, it's a long time coming, but it's happened now. It's happened now. So, you know, it's been a lot. Hold on, I just seen something, right? And I wanted to talk to you about it, to be honest. I see this situation with Lane Johnson and him not wanting to play next to Cam Jurgens. Do you think that's 100% true, or is that just something that's coming out? Because I've seen that a couple of times.
It's tough to say like what might be being said behind the scene here. I mean, we won't really know until they're in pads and they're actually like practicing when it's some kind of meaningful rep. Right now, everything right now is hypothetical. I had a debate with a young man on Twitter a couple of weeks ago where they were talking about Cam Jurgens, and they were like, "Well, Isaac Seumalo was the same size as Cam Jurgens coming out of college," and like I was like trying to explain to him like as a coach, and I was never really involved in that side of the game where you're trying to like really get these guys physically ready per se. I wasn't with strength and conditioning per se, but I've been around enough people who work in that field to understand that body types are different. It doesn't matter if these dudes are 6'2", 305. Like people carry body weight differently. I mean, see Lane Johnson himself, who's a 315-pound athlete, but it's very much a labor for him to stay at that weight. Like, this was a 6'5", 200-pound quarterback his freshman year of college. You know what I mean? Like that's not every body type is the same. Cam Jurgens is a converted like tight end coming into that positioning group. You look at a guy like Isaac Seumalo, while he did go from like 300, 305 to like 320-ish, he did play his entire career as a lineman, defensive line, offensive line, like dating all the way back to high school. So like I could definitely understand if there's maybe some underlying concern when it comes to size protecting like the center and the right side of the line, because like you would have a lighter line. Like Cam Jurgens, not saying he can't beef up and get heavier 315, 320-ish, but you're going to have two athletically gifted guys, but maybe not the most natural 315, 320, pound guys on that right side of the line. With that said, doesn't mean that he can't have proper leverage, can't have proper technique, and isn't just naturally strong. Like just because you're bigger doesn't necessarily mean that you're stronger.
Today was the beginning of OTAs, man. I know it's not much. Nobody putting on pads, no hitting, no content. Is there any guy that maybe caught your eye, or you maybe think people should keep an eye out for doing this OTAs and training camp situation?
See, that's tough. One of the players I like a lot is Moro Jamo. And that's just because of, just the physical build of what it takes to play down there on the defensive line. And the fact that, a lot of the guys that are backing up certain positions don't have a lot of length. There's not a lot of like arm length to them on that defensive line. And to me, it matters that the two guys they drafted, both the first and seventh round, the begin and end the draft essentially, are guys that have pretty good arm reach down there in that defensive line group. Now you can say like Ajamu's not a 315, 320 pounder per se, but I still think it's someone that plays like a 3 technique or a 4-eye or a 5 technique. This is a guy with 34-inch arm reach. I mean, this guy can definitely give you proper leverage. A lot of people don't understand like the actual fundamentals of playing the game and the fact that you've got to shoot your hips the right way as a defensive lineman and hit at a 45-degree angle. Hence the reason we make people work sleds to do that correctly, to gain proper leverage. And, it doesn't mean just because you have longer extremities that you're going to be good at that per se, but it's certainly easier to make guys that are above 33 inches in the arm reach on the D line, especially at that level of football. It's a heck of a lot easier on the coaches to make them correct than a guy that has to be flawless, like a Brandon Graham. You know what I mean? Like big, powerful, strong dude, but he's not the longest guy in terms of the arm reach. Like Brandon Graham's a little shorter in the arm reach. Hassan Reddick's a little shorter in the arm reach. Those dudes aren't quite the same. You know what I mean? So, to me, like Moro Ojomo's a guy that I think could be – he's not a shoe-in on the roster, but I think he's going to have an opportunity to play himself onto it. I'll give you another name. Staying on the arm reach and the other position where I think athletic measurables matter a lot. This will be tomorrow's video. I'm going to release it. You're getting a free preview tonight, man. All right. Mekhi Garner from LSU. I know everyone's talking about Eli Ricks. I think Eli Ricks is a really good prospect. I do. Mekhi Garner is 6'2", 210 pounds plus, 32.25-inch arm reach, and a 78-inch wingspan. Playing outside as the boundary corner. You got to put it on the field. These are just physical attributes. You still got to put it on the field. But this young man had like a 1.51-10 split on that 4.5 540, which a 1.51 10 split's faster than Darius Slay's when he was at the combine. So there's definitely some reasons to look at a guy like that and say he's definitely not a shoe-in. Like if I had to take a wild guess, they're going to carry 6 defensive backs in total in terms of cornerbacks, not including safeties. Okay. I would say that you're looking at Avonte Maddox, Darius Slay, James Bradbury, the obvious ones. I think, Josh Jobe, in my opinion, Zach McPherson's going to kick inside. I think those two are competing to be the backup there. And then I think you got Greedy Williams probably mostly backing up. He'll be the main backup, but mostly they envision him backing up Darius Slay. And you got Kaylee Ringo. However, if Greedy Williams leaves the door open, just ajar just a little bit, and an Eli Ricks or Mekhi Garner or Josh Jobe come bursting through it, I'm going to be real with you, man. Like when I looked at the Philadelphia Eagles and I broke down that position group, the cornerback position group, how many corners, all right, out of the guys that are on this roster at the outside corner spot, how many of them do you think are shorter than 31 inches in the arm reach?
Probably not many. Maybe Maddox, I would think.
Well, and he's inside. He's a nickel. Okay. You're right. He would be below that threshold, 31 inches. The only one who would probably be envisioned as an outside corner, and I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't get kicked inside, to be honest with you, is Mario Goodrich, the former Clemson Tiger.
Okay. Yeah, I remember.
We got him undrafted last year. Everyone else is 31 inches or above that's basically projected to compete outside at cornerback.
Hold on, that guy you just told me about from LSU, how close is to him is Greedy Williams? How close are they in measurables?
Greedy, so if you go and look through like success rate in the NFL, and I know that that's very arbitrary when we say something like success rate, but when you look at how PFF graded guys over the last 5 years, right, in their top 10, okay, there's 43 guys in the past 5 years who have graded out in that top 10, which tells you right away you have 7 guys who duplicated. 7 guys who did this multiple times. 6 of them are outside cornerbacks. So when I went to go take a look at who those 6 cornerbacks were, and I was kind of flipping through just trying to figure out measurement, profile on them, I found a lot of interesting things. First thing I found out is this. Not one person, whether I looked at all-pro selection over the last 5 years, both first and second team, or just highest graded player per PFF over those 6 guys that I'm referring to, not one of those guys was below 190 pounds. Not one of them. Now, they came in all kinds of different sizes. Jair Alexander, 5'10", right? Tre'Davious White. They came in shorter sizes. They came in taller sizes. Patrick Peterson and, obviously Ahmad Sauce Gardner. They came in all, Patrick Surtain. They came in all kinds of different sizes per se. But none of them were below 190 pounds. And none of them were below 31 inches in the arm reach. That stands out to me 5 years isn't like a definitive book, write the book on things, but it's definitely a time frame that tells you about where the game is, where the game currently is, and what is translating and succeeding outside right now, which is, in my opinion, the correlation is really strong when you get over 6 feet, over 190 pounds, and over 31 inches in the arm reach. And then there's a lot of things that we can get into when you talk about 40 times. When you talk about something like, lateral movement drills, and how those things are translated. You want me to just lay those out for you real quick?
Go ahead, man. I'm listening, man. I'm trying to get my game up. So you giving me some heads up.
The ideal corner prospect. Okay, prospect keyword here. Doesn't mean it's going to work out, but the ideal corner prospect would be over 6 feet, over 190 pounds, would have over 31 inches in arm reach, would probably run a 4.45, 40 or sub 40, below that threshold, right?
Okay.
And would probably have somewhere below a 1.55-10 split, would be below a 2.6-20 split. Okay. And then their lateral movement drills, the closer they are to a 4.2 or below, in terms of the short shuttle, the 5.10.5, they call the short shuttle, 20-yard shuttle. The closer they are to that marker, but certainly in the 4.2 range, most guys are in the mid 4.2s, to be honest. But if they're below that, they're incredibly athletically gifted when it comes to the footwork stuff.
Right.
And then a sub 7 second, 7.10 is the real threshold, is real cutoff. But if they're below 7 second in particular on the 3-cone drill, it means they have very fluid hips.
Right.
So that's your, guy's going to be 6 foot. He's going to be 190 pounds at least. He's going to have at least 31 inches in the arm reach. He's going to run probably a 4.4, 5.40 or below. He's going to have, 1.55 or below in terms of the 10 split. He'll have a 2.60 or below in a 20 split. He's going to run, let's just say, ideally, let's say a 4.24 short shuttle, and we'll say he runs like a 6.91 3-cone. That's your ideal corner prospect, right? Then you get into like explosive traits, like, Mekhi Garner, the guy we're talking about right now. Mekhi Garner had like a 1.5, 1.10 split, 38-inch vertical, and like 128-inch broad jump. He's explosive. Like those are pretty dang explosive numbers. So like it's weird because like sometimes these things have absolutely no meaning. Nothing to do with the football field. But I do think because of how difficult it is to play cornerback, man, if you don't meet the minimum threshold to play corner in the NFL, you are done for in today's NFL. Now, you will find guys that will beat certain aspects of it, right? Like I talked about the height thing. The height thing correlates pretty well, but like there's definitely some examples of guys that are not 6 feet that have played outside and done okay.
Right.
But all of them have at least 31-inch arms, to be honest. They're all over 190 pounds. When I look at something like correlating, like, okay, like what if they had a really, really bad short shuttle? Would that doom them? No, it just means that you're probably going to deal with some issues with footwork. You're going to have to probably iron out the footwork. Key example here would be ironic. I said Key, but yeah, Kaylee Ringo. Yeah.
I watched the video on him. And I was like, yeah, he that's why he got the hip problem. He can't really like, he's so fast, but he's not fluent with like the movement of the feet.
Kaylee Ringo is very, very explosive. Like I think if you're going to put a guy like that in any type of system where it's going to survive, play safety over top of him and let him be athletic. Right. I think that's the plan. I think that's what they're planning with him.
Does that fit with us? Is that what they're looking to do with us?
I think you're going to see some adaptation of the Vic Fangio system here. I don't think it'll be apples to apples with what Jonathan Gannon did. I do think there'll be some differences. I think they'll pull the levers in certain ways that are different. But I do think that you're going to see a lot of like quarters coverage. You're still going to see a lot of like cover 2 concept. You'll see that cover 6 or cover 8 if you're flipping the sides of the field in terms of like where you're playing your quarters versus, where you're playing your half man coverage. Most of the time you play your half man coverage to the strong side, but if you play towards you play towards the weak side. But if you play your half man coverage towards the strong side, then it becomes cover 8, essentially, instead of cover 6. So like getting back to to answer your original question, which is like getting to Greedy Williams. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, Greedy Williams is a decent sized guy. Like he's got over a 31-inch arm reach. He's over 6 feet, I believe. He's like right at that 6 foot threshold, I believe.
I thought he was 6'1", right? Like almost.
Yeah, so I think he's somewhere around there. Yeah, but I think he's only like 180, 185. If I'm not mistaken.
180. Well, they got him at 185, but I've seen people say he plays at like 180-ish.
Yeah. So I mean, you kind of look at this like, okay, maybe if you look at the deeper analytics, there's not like you just don't have a lot of high success rate recently of dudes under 190 playing at a high level. But if he meets every other threshold except for that one little threshold, I mean, Devontae Smith was sub 180. He was a sub 180 wide receiver, like that went top 10. Like, tell me the success rate of wide receivers that are sub 180 pounds that translate in terms of the top 10. Like,
most of them are injury prone. Most of them don't last long. Most of them in their second or third season, you start seeing them fade away already.
Mm-hmm. So like Greedy Williams has an incredible athletic profile, but he has been really injury prone. That's really been the knock on him coming into Philadelphia now. So if you can keep him healthy, I do think that he's probably the most talented guy out of this group of corners to talk about, but I don't think that he's a lock for the roster. Like if you said probability, I'd say he has probably Kaylee Ringo probably has the best probability because they spent a draft asset that they traded up for to go get him. So I definitely think he's got obviously I don't think they would cut him unless he would have to be like ridiculously bad to be cut. Now, I will say Greedy Williams is the one where I say to myself, like, if that door gets left just slightly open, man, if he leaves the door just slightly ajar and one of these young cornerbacks step through it, it could be an interesting camp. That's like one of the, I know we start off with more Ojama, but right. that cornerback spot to me is like one where it shouldn't happen. We should know who the 6 guys are, minus like the Josh Jobe and Zach McPherson battle. Like, I think you just let whoever's the best player there back up, Avonte Max. I think it'll be Zach McPherson personally, but they seem to like Josh Jobe. I'm sorry, not Josh Jobe. They seem to like, what's that young man's? Josiah Scott.
Josiah Scott. Yeah, I don't want to see him push.
Yeah, they seem to like him. But yeah, but like that's like to me, that's what I look at when I'm trying to like figure out where I think these camp battles will be. Then, right guard's going to be an interesting one too, man. That's one where I don't think the job is as secure as people think. I think Juergens is probably the guy that has the greatest, possibility of taking that job because he's been in the system. But he's really not a right guard. Tyler Steen, he's converting. He's trying to, he's got the size to play it.
Does he have any experience at the right guard position? I heard he played like a little bit in college, and then I heard he played a little bit in the Senior Bowl, but I heard that's all he was.
Senior Bowl was what I heard. Like collegiately, I don't think he played it. I don't know about his high school career, to be fair. Like he may have played some interior offensive line during high school that I'm not aware of, but collegiately, he didn't do it at Tennessee and he didn't do it at Alabama.
Okay.
However, when they got to the Senior Bowl, from what I'm hearing, is that not only did he look the part, but like he tested above what they were expecting, which is the reason why so many teams, like, Tyler Steen went from being like probably a 4th round pick to being like a sought after back end of the 2nd round, upper 3rd round, pick. Like, and that normally doesn't happen in the draft. Like mostly scouts know exactly where these dudes are.
Right.
From what I understand is he really opened up eyes at the Senior Bowl.
What's your evaluation? I mean, me personally, I think Sidney Brown is probably a shoe-in at safety, but I know a lot of people don't think so. Do you think Terrell Edmonds and Reed Blankenship is what we need at safety, or do you think we should insert Sidney Brown into this rotation and give him a shot?
I think it'll be tough. Like, see, that's the tough part is like week 1, we could be wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it takes time. Like, he is a rookie. He's coming off a rookie camp. Like, it's not going to be easy to dethrone somebody who's got a year in the system and, outplayed the expectation for the spot. But with that said, like, then it becomes a matter of, like, do you believe that – how do the Eagles perceive this, right? Is Terrell Edmonds really a long-term solution for the Eagles? Probably not. Probably, stopgap kind of fixture here, right? Reed Blankenship, like, how sold are they internally on him being, like, a starting caliber safety as opposed to being the 3rd guy?
Probably 60-40.
Kind of, you know what I mean? Like, it's really difficult to say how they perceive the position group. So I think Sidney Brown has a really good opportunity to eventually, and if maybe even early, get on the field and contribute. But to be fair, we've seen guys like Landon Dickerson, like, he started right away almost, Now I think he started off at right guard and they ended up switching him to left guard. Then he just locked it in. But, and I do think that, if I'm not mistaken, I think there was an injury or something that kind of pushed him into the lineup early. But, safety, the depth there is interesting, to say the least. There's not a lot of true post safeties on this Eagles team. It's a lot of dudes that are used to playing the box. Dudes that might physically make sense to be able to play the post. Justin Evans is a dude that we signed formerly from the Saints. Most recently played with Tampa Bay, has an incredibly complex injury history. Athletically gifted, though. I mean, he's a pretty athletically gifted dude. He's a guy that played more so and was pretty dang successful playing in the box last year. But, I mean, I could see them fooling themselves into saying, like, I think this dude could be a post. I think he can play up and back if we need him. He can play post. He can play down in the box. Like, we're not really concerned about labeling either one of these safeties, to be honest. But if I had to guess, I think Terrell Edmonds is definitely probably a lock for this season, unless he's really bad. Like, he'd have to be pretty bad just because he's the only dude with a ton of experience. You know what I mean? Past Terrell Edmonds, man, I think it's best man wins the job. I really do. Like Reed Blankenship's an undrafted free agent. I mean, how committed are they to him? I think the young man can play. I think he's a decent player. I think they, one of those TJ Edwards situations where they got it right. But I can't say that they think that they're solidified there. I wouldn't even be shocked if there's not a move post training camp. You know what I mean? Like kind of like right before you get into that preparation for week 1, if they don't make another move for the second consecutive season at the safety spot there. Because I'd imagine they're not as comfortable as maybe they let on in press conferences.
I mean, I like the Sidney Brown to play, but I also don't know, where he fits in that plan because I know, Reed Blankenship do got a hand up. Terrell Edmonds is a veteran. Justin Evans is, his injury history is scarred, but he's also a veteran. Kevon Wallace is the only guy I think is shoot out.
Yeah, that's the only thing is like I can see Kevon Wallace beating out Justin Evans as well. You know what I mean? Like it's not. I don't think they're sold on any of the guys outside of Blankenship, Sidney. I'd say Sidney Brown and then Terrell Edmonds. I think the fourth guy, whoever's going to play that fourth role, is either not on this team yet, or is on this team and someone else is going to step into one of those starting roles. You get what I mean? Like they may not be as locked in on this roster as we think yet. That's the tough part is like trying to figure out where they are with things. Like I could definitely see them making a play there. I know a lot of people are rumoring edge rusher. I think edge rusher gets kind of difficult to do. I think they might be trying to detract more than they're trying to add at edge rusher right now, unless they can find, and this is hard to find. I mean, how many young edge rushers are undervalued and on the market? You know what I mean? Like, seems pretty unlikely. Like
everybody wants the same guy, to be honest. They want that Njoku dude.
Yeah.
Is there a position you think we should make a move at?
I think you could definitely make. I'd let running back ride out the way it is. I think we're pretty solidified after they made the trade for DeAndre Swift during the draft. Tight end's good. Wide receiver, you could add to wide receiver. I definitely think you could, but I mean the names that are up there are just hard to say. Like this is the guy you should go target because would they on paper be way better with DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, come on, like yeah, like that trio, that tandem of guys there. Like, I mean, come on, man. Like, you give you nightmares. But I do wonder. I wonder like how that would work in terms of like players worrying about their legacy, worrying about the target distribution in the shares. Like, I know people.
There was already a problem with that last year.
You know exactly. Yeah. With Smitty already kind of like after week 1, we saw that they had to like actually find a way of getting Smitty involved in the offense, and that's a part like from a coaching standpoint. It's like okay, you're gonna allocate your target shares. You will. Historically speaking, underneath Nick Sirianni, the third wide receiver has gotten about anywhere between 40 to say 70 targets in the season. That's about the sweet spot for that receiver. However, we also got to add into the fact that Dallas Goedert missed some games last year, so his target share would likely go up. And then it's like, okay, maybe you could detract, you could pull back from those 1 and 2 receivers if you have a legitimate third receiver, but how much are you pulling back? I guess that's kind of the tough part. You got Devontae Smith. He's coming up on that contract year. You know what I mean? Like this is kind of that year. This season is to kind of like say, hey man, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, back-to-back whatever his reception numbers will be. Like to say like, hey, pony up. I need money. Like,
that's the whole reason Jalen took the discount is to make sure his guys get paid. So.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't know where D-Hop fit. Like I'm okay with it if that's what we take, but I just don't see him fitting. Like it's just too many targets. You're already trying to get 3 1,000 receivers and a tight end, and then you're gonna add another guy who possibly is here on a prove it deal. You're gonna want more targets.
See, and that's the tough part is like when you really break it down from a game planning standpoint too. Is like you're not game planning for 3 wide receivers to get the football. That's just not the way coaching works. You're game planning for 1 to 2 guys to get the football on a weekly basis. And then you have your backup options. Like, okay, like this play doesn't work and they're in this coverage. This is the second read. This is the third read. Like, but then you also got to factor in the fact that you have Jalen Hurts. If you're 3rd and 12, you have DeAndre Swift now, who's elusive in the open field and can catch the football. You got Jalen Hurts, who can definitely make a defense pay if they turn their backs to him in man coverage. So like, it gets really difficult. Like, when you get in those situations, like how do you allocate the football to players? Like that to me, like that's the hard issue when you start looking at some of these really, really big names. Now, I will say this, like from a Howie Roseman standpoint, would he might want to add a guy like DeAndre Hopkins if he's willing to come here just to keep him away from the Giants, just to keep him away from the Cowboys, just to keep him away from, the Washington Commanders, like possibly. He might want to do that just to kind of make sure that no one outpaces the Eagles inside the division. And that's like, to me, I think that's more of the conversation that probably goes on internally. Like, okay, if the guy wants to play here, we know we're going to have to get really creative with the distribution of targets. If we say no on this opportunity to add him, if he lands in another destination internally within the division, is this going to create us like way more of a headache than just bringing them in and figuring out the target share? I think that's really the argument.
I don't know.
He did shake his head no at Dak, so
I haven't seen if you did a video on Nicholas Morrow or a deep dive, but I've been kind of high on this guy, and I want you to tell me if I'm crazy. But I think he can fit that role that Kaiser White last year kind of fell off going into like the 9th and 10th games of the season where he couldn't come back. Am I tripping, or is he a good prospect for this team?
Smart guy, very intelligent football player. I did make a video on him. I was actually responding to Barrett Brooks. Barrett Brooks was talking about impact plays, and he defined impact plays, especially from like the linebacker position, as being able to get involved at 3 yards or back. Like anything from 3 yards backwards is pretty much what he calls an impact play. And he's specifically talking about the linebacker position. Obviously defensive linemen, you don't want to be making too many plays 3 yards down the field. However, when I broke it down, I always told people, like, be careful, because I do think that a lot of the guys who rank high in these impact plays tend to play the weak side, what in a traditional 43 we would call will linebacker. And that's because they have the flats to guard. So obviously they're going to have some plays where they can make those easy inside 3 yard tackles. But when I broke it down and I was looking at these impact plays,
right?
I mean, he was just slightly ahead of Kaiser White. As good as Kaiser White was, Nicholas Morrow was slightly above him, and he didn't play on the greatest defense in Chicago, to be quite honest. Now, I think Chicago's got some nice elements to their defense. Their defensive line's not very good, though. Johnson, their cornerback, I mean, I'd love to add him to Philly, but Jalen Johnson, a dude's a ball player.
Oh, okay, yeah. I know you're talking about.
Ball player.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, like, I looked at that defense, and I was like, yeah, I mean, he's a decent football player. Like, this is low-key a really good signing. Like, he's a really good signing. And I know people are concerned because they're like, we're so undersized at linebacker. And it's like, yeah, but I mean, it's also predicated on the scheme that we play and we run. Like, the whole point of our scheme is for the defensive tackles to keep the linebackers clean so they can scrape and make plays. I mean, if you can't do that, then I don't care if you got a 250-pound linebacker. Like, it's probably not going to matter. If you got linemen climbing the second level in this scheme, I don't think size is the most important factor to that.
If you got a good D line, does size really matter though at that point? Like,
no, I think what they're looking for is more instinct and kind of the ability to get through and close that gap fast.
See ball, get ball type deal.
Yeah, you want to beat guys. Like, the way you defeat the scheme that we run is, and this is why Gannon would try to get the guys to play gap and a half, is that people would use a lot of, they would use a lot of like pulls. They would pull, come through, do crack blocks, things like that to kind of throw you off guard. So you would get, a lot of gap blocking is what would happen. They would pull through a gap. And, the way you're supposed to do that is if you're playing gap and a half, then you're reading the inside foot. So if you see the inside foot moving and you see it moving a certain way, you're supposed to be right on that hip. That's the whole point of gap and a half, is you're supposed to let that guy, basically take you to the football. And you're supposed to go make the play there. So, I mean, I look at it and I'm like, okay, like, it just depends upon, like, can you keep these guys clean? And if you keep them clean, can they read and get there? I mean, there were times like during the 2021 season when they had Alex Singleton and was it Eric Wilson? I understood they had concrete boots on. And it's not like Alex, Singleton can't play. He's actually a decent football player. But it was just the way that they were so thrown off by the system and the way it was supposed to work. The minute they plugged in TJ Edwards and they plugged in Davion Taylor, you immediately saw a difference. Because those dudes were like, okay, we're not going to wait. We're going to go attack it. We're going to go get to the football. And that's what they did. And that's, that's going to be, another interesting situation is at linebacker, which is how do you look at this depth chart? I mean, is that a spot where they might come and add a veteran player later on? I do
Is there
think
a
that.
linebacker on the roster that you think could give? I mean, I don't know about a Sean Bradley or Ellis, but is there somebody that you think might could step in and get a starting role?
I mean, in an ideal world, they would probably like Davion Taylor to finally step up and be that third guy, to be the guy that would be, the break in case of emergency dependable player. During the 2021 offseason, I mean, Davion was looking good. I mean, he looked like a dude that they liked a lot inside the system. It didn't work that way last year, man, and it's hard to forget that. It's hard to forget that he got moved down to the practice squad.
How did that happen? How did that happen for him? Because I mean, I thought he was shoo-in after coming back from injury and all that. Because it's not like he hasn't had playing time on our team before.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm not too sure what happened inside the camp, because we get so little footage of what's happening. But they clearly didn't like what they saw. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, the Kaiser White and TJ Edwards tandem was really good, and the Kobe Dean is a solid backup. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they had their three guys that they wanted, but I was shocked too, man. I thought Davion would be another one that they kind of keep. I thought they would be a little bit more rotational. I thought there'd be a little bit more of a rotation at linebacker than there was last season.
I didn't see much of a rotation at all, Gate. I really didn't.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you to say the rotation was dropping a safety down and pulling a linebacker off the field. that was really the majority of the rotation. Yeah.
Like I thought Nakobe Dean should have got more time. I thought, maybe even a Davion Taylor getting at least some type of reps. I didn't see any of that. It was like he got stagnant. He was like, these are two guys I'm keeping on the field. And if they're not on the field, it's gonna be somebody else on the field. But it ain't gonna be another linebacker.
Christian Ellis is very much athletically gifted. I was that guy's name, Summerlin or whatever, the young man we just got out of Michigan State.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, another fairly athletically gifted player, but we talk about arm reach and we talk about playing with length and playing with, I think we got like one player maybe that's over that 32-inch threshold for linebackers in terms of the arm reach. Like in Nakobe Dean, I think is the guy that's the next closest to it, which he's like an eighth short, which to me, like, you round
that's
up.
Pretty much it.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much it. But I don't know, man. Like, we don't have like the way that we structure our linebacking core is definitely different from the way other teams do it. And we're not the only team. I don't want to imply like we're the only team that doesn't care about arm reach. We're the only team that doesn't care about, most teams want you to be 6'2" plus, 230, 235 pounds plus, and have 32-inch arm reach or greater. The linebacker spot. And the Eagles don't care about that crap. Like,
what is Nakobe Dean? What is Nakobe Dean, like 215, right?
They have them listed like 230. Whether that's true or not, the thing is like I catch teams doing this all the time where they won't update past the scouting combine measurements. Like they'll just go with what was said at the pro day or the scouting combine of the player, and then you never see like a real true update to the player. Like the only reason I know that Isaac Seumalo was playing at 320 pounds is that when he signed his extension back in, it was like 2018 or something, like he basically said like, hey, I added weight. He basically told us like he added weight to solidify himself because he felt like he was getting moved off the ball.
And I heard today he like in the last 2 years he started bulking up to like 330 to play.
He might have. Like I said, I only knew about 320, so I mean he might have gone northward. I mean he looked big on the field, but yeah, it's camera. It's deceiving, man, when you're looking at that kind of stuff. So I mean I don't really know, but I do know that he said back in like 2018 when he signed his contract extension that like, hey man, like I bulked up. So you might be right. He might have been well above 320. Like he might have been way above that.
That means he was an animal, and that's why Lane Johnson probably made the comments he made. Like, hey, I want another animal next to me that could put up just as much weight. Because Cam Dragon's a little small. I agree with that. He is a little small, but I think he can hold his own though.
Crap, man. Yeah, he's got decent size arm length for what I was kind of shocked because when you look at it and you see center, you're thinking like, okay, there's probably another Kelsey type dude that's got a little shorter in the arms, faster. I was like, oh no, like he's deep for a center. Like maybe for a guard, you can get an argument that it's lower end of the average size for arm reach for a guard, but in terms of a center, he's actually got somewhat longer arms for centers, to be quite honest. And dude is like, man, when you look at his testing numbers, like there's no wonder for me why the Eagles looked at this and said, that's our guy. Like that's the dude we want. Like you have got to have athleticism at center here in Philadelphia. And like, that's our dude. Like he's that guy. That's the guy that we need. Cause like I was breaking down all the centers one day. I was like doing this like detailed video and I was breaking down the centers. I think I went over like 20 some different centers in the league. and I was like breaking down how the draft class stacked to them and stuff. And I was like, man, like there's like this really athletically gifted set of guys, like the dude out at Frank, whatever his name is, that plays at Detroit. Their center.
Yeah, he's pretty decent.
He's a really athletically gifted guy. The dude that plays for Kansas City, he's an athletically gifted guy. Like he was an Oklahoma guy, by the way, too. The guy that plays at Kansas City. Like there's definitely some centers that are very athletically gifted. Jason Kelsey, very athletically gifted. There's all those dudes, and then there's this other tier that is Cam Jurgens in terms of the measurables, those athletic measurables. Like that dude it's pretty crazy to see his testing numbers. Like he's definitely like a guy that pops off the charts there. Now, still got to learn proper technique, proper leverage. Like there's offensive line is really tough, man. When I had the ability to have a couple of guys come on the channel and like play collegiately. They play college ball and they were offensive linemen. I don't know if you know Jalen Williams, but he's been around the communities.
I watched him. I think I watched him on your page.
Yeah, like Jalen's played at Virginia State. Smart dude, knows the game really really well. And then there's he actually has a YouTube channel. I don't know if he's uploaded videos recently though, but Dubs the O-line guru, Caleb, my guy Caleb. He played at Charleston down in South Carolina. He was a center. Those two guys, man, when they started explaining the leverage you have to do, the way they have to play off of like the leg, like what leg is leading and what they have to do, it's like, oh my God, like it's so technical to play the offensive line. Like it is. I used to think that like being a quarterback, you kind of see things through the lens of being a quarterback. I used to think our job was really technical until I heard and had these guys break down film with me and explain blocking assignments, like things that like I asked Jalen and Caleb one day. We were watching the Bucks game, the playoff game, right, during 2021 season. And I was asking about a play Miles Sanders had. And I said, hey, man, like, did he miss the hole? Am I wrong in assuming that? And Jalen and Caleb both like, you're not wrong, but you're not right either. And they were explaining to me that, like, actually what you see here is you see a seal block from Lane Johnson, which creates the cutback lane, which is a secondary option for the running back. But for whatever reason, and they're like, look, we can't get into the politics of why he did what he did. He thought that was open, and that's where he went with the ball. He went to that first primary, never look to see the cutoff lane was wide open.
Right.
I mean, there was a huge hole in one of the plays. I was like, dude, am I wrong for thinking he went to the wrong hole? They're like, no, he didn't go to the wrong hole. I mean, that is designed as a cutback lane. It is there in case the primary lane gets closed up on. He probably should have seen it, but for whatever reason, he didn't. But they're like, no, like he was going to where he was directed to go. It's just that like that on that particular play, you get this great seal block from Lane Johnson. There's his entire lane open. Like, I mean, he would have busted off a 20-yard run easily. And he was wide open. And like they were explaining all that. I'm like, man, it's very technical, man. Like those dudes, like my hat goes off to those guys, man, because like you can learn so much from different guys who played at different position groups, just kind of giving you some insight and keying you in on technique and stuff. Like these, Jalen was the first guy that really talked to me about shooting your hips correctly and creating that proper 45-degree angle on the defensive line to win leverage against an O-line. He was the first guy that really talked to me about that. I mean, it's definitely like, I got guys that I talk to all the time that play corner. I think is it Lit City Lambeau, I believe he's a former, he played D3. I think he was a safety and linebacker. And he's explained a couple of times, like what the actual, like how he was taught in terms of like how you play post versus box as a safety inside of a 2-high system, like how they rock, what they call rocking the safeties and like what the assignment is and kind of like what they do depending upon if it's a cover 6 call, cover 8, are we looking at, are they going to play something like an inverted cover 2 to where those guys are going to crash down and cover the flats, the safeties are, then those 2 corners are going to kick out and play over the top. I think, Jim Schwartz used to do that a lot.
I like that inverted look. It confuses the quarterback. If he's not paying attention, he could easily throw that interception. I felt like that's kind of what we ran against when we first pick by Reed Blankenship. I felt like it was inverted because it seemed like he came from the top, then he kind of like crashed. He was going to the flat, then he stopped. He just happened to be in the right spot.
It might have been. It's hard to say without seeing it on film, but like, it's just helpful to have people like that can help you break down film. Like they can teach you like it's really easy to explain cover 3. It's really easy to explain cover 1. Like those things are really, really easy to explain, right? Cover 0, very easy concepts to explain. Try explaining to someone the coverage principles of cover 7 and how that differs by each coaching staff. Like I can explain to you the basics. Take the field, split field coverage, cut it down the middle. One side's playing cover 4, one side's playing cover 3, but there's a ton of coverage rules inside of that. Like first man out, Are they coning the coverage on this side depending on what the receiver does? Like, are they going to play apex on the opposite side? Like, it's difficult, man. Like, it is helpful to have people to help you kind of see the game differently, then allows you to go into the film room and make a video and then kind of like explain it to other people, explain the concept, explain what's going on. Like, prominent one I'll give you right now. Everyone remember, the Darius Slay touchdown in the Super Bowl. I don't know yet. I had that under the microscope with a few different guys trying to break it down. I know there was a mix-up in the communication. My gut instinct is that they were apexing. So they were going to double in, like they were going to cone it to one of the sides there. They're going to play a cone coverage. And on the other side, they were supposed to apex. And I think somebody inside, and I don't know whose responsibility was supposed to kick out and cover that flat.
Who was standing next to Darius Slay when he came in? He came in on the edge. He's the higher guy on the video. It's somebody closer to the line, and then it's Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, somebody was supposed to. I don't know if it was Hassan or if it was one of the linebackers. It looks like somebody was supposed to kick out to the flats. Because now, I don't know if that person saw the formation differently than Darius. So when the play got called and the communication happened, the linebackers, the safeties, and the corners weren't on the same page. Clearly, those guys were not on the same page.
I didn't even see Darius Slay look. He didn't even
said something. Like, he did yell something.
No. I'm
like
saying
nobody,
when the play. No,
he never even looked to the flat.
He didn't look to the flat.
Never once.
He looked more to the.
He coned in on. I think it was Kelsey. He was coning in.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, to me that looks like a cover 7 principle. So where somebody was supposed to kick out and cover that flat. Now I don't know. Like, it's something that requires a lot of study, a lot of film time, to be honest, to really, because you don't want to assign blame to somebody and be really wrong. You know what I mean? Because like you could create a shitstorm. You know what I mean? Like, right. You could really cause problems for that person. Like, I try to be diligent when I do that, but that's what it looks like, man. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. It looks like there was a cover 7 principle play down there. Communication was really bad. Someone didn't cover the flats. I'm not too sure who was supposed to kick out that way, but somebody didn't cover that flat.
I haven't watched the Super Bowl, but now I want to see this play again, because it felt like somebody was standing right, kind of in front, kind of behind Darius Slay, but to the side, maybe from the angle of the camera. And I felt like he was supposed to cover the flat.
They said what happened was the play got broke down. It was a broken play, and the offense messed up. I don't know if that created enough confusion for the defense to get caught that way, but they ran a very similar looking play like the next series down there and scored again. And that's where Avonte Maddox got tripped up. They never passed it off, so no one came back. And then it was just a walk-in touchdown. Now, I'll say this. You got to give Andy Reid, you got to give Eric Bieniemy, and you got to give, what's his name? The dude used to coach Chicago. Is now Matt Nagy. You got to give those dudes a lot of credit, man, because they weaponized the field. And I know people say, like, oh, you're making an excuse. I'm not making an excuse. Both teams played. Both teams played on that field. But a veteran coaching staff weaponized the field to beat a team that was more talented than them.
Yep. Did you hear what Kelsey said about it? He said, when we walked out there, I was letting the guys know, hey man, be careful on this play. When we run this play right here, set your feet a little bit better, because you're not gonna be able to cut back. Mm-hmm. You're gonna have to carry your body weight with you. Like, it's just that, and that's Andy Reid more telling you, hey, get ready, and then you telling somebody else, hey, be ready.
Mm-hmm. I think that was like, I hate to say it, but I feel like if the field conditions were different, you don't get that outcome. You don't. In my opinion, you don't get the outcome. Now, I know you can still say, like, Gabe, but at the end of the day, they got their teeth kicked in the trenches in the run game, and we just couldn't stop them, and that's really what got them in the game.
But I don't think they do that, Gabe.
But, like, they threw 3 touchdowns, man. Like, I get they ran the ball all down us in the second half, but, like, man, they hit us for 3 touchdowns. Bro, there's a reason why Patrick Mahomes had under 30 attempts, which was tied for his second lowest attempt output on the season. Threw for 182 yards, which was his lowest output on the season, but still had 131, like, 0.8 QB rating, passer rating in that game. Like, it's because they hit us for 3 touchdowns on that. And it sucks, man, because like you had a veteran defensive backfield, which, by the way, the 3 guys played the majority of the snaps. Like, I didn't see anyone subbing in when I looked at the actual snap count. So it was really Avonte, it was Darius, and it was James out there. It wasn't like they were subbing anyone in, really. Now, the safeties had a little bit more of a rotation going, but still, like, I mean, it's, I think it's part of the reason why those dudes came back. I think that they still feel a certain way about the way the game went down. James Bradbury is gonna say all the right things, right? Was what he did a hold? Technically, by the book, yes. I'm just saying I see that play. I
Gate.
see that play every single freaking Sunday, and it's very seldom a flag thrown on it.
Very seldom called. I gotta agree with you on that. Hey,
Yeah.
Gate. So guess who the guy that got tricked twice was?
I know Avonte Maddox bid on a couple of things I watched.
He's on both of those plays. He's the outside man.
Yeah, I watched Avonte Maddox. He jumped one, and he jumped one in the flats, and that's probably what they were doing. So they were manipulating him. He jumped one in the flats earlier in the game, and he just threw the ball right behind him for like an easy 10, 12-yard completion.
They did him like we did Micah.
Yeah, like they definitely they were baiting Avonte a little bit. And it stinks because I get a lot of people now that are chiming in and they're down on Avonte, and it's like I have to pump the brakes personally a little bit because I know Avonte is actually a really, really good player. He's one of the better nickel corners in the league, but I'm also well aware that I was able to answer that for you because I saw the film. I saw that man get baited a couple times in that game. I did see it.
Yeah, I just watched it. They motion in, and as Darius Slay is going past Kelsey, he yells at Maddox. He throws his hand up. Maddox looks, and by the time he looks, Tony's going the other way.
Yep. The one that was on the left side. It was like a walk-in, straight up walk-in touchdown. It was an easy play. Yeah. That was Andy, man. That was Andy and Pat, man. You gotta give them credit, just weaponizing the field, just absolutely outflanking us with the field. And that was the game. It bothered me because I went into it and I was talking with LB, I was talking with Mike, I was talking with Philly Fresh, and I told them that I expect to see Kansas City run a lot of multiple tight end sets in this game. They're actually very athletic at the tight end spot, but they're not that deep inside of the wide receiver room. And what they do accomplish in the wide receiver room is highly scripted. Boy, I was right, except for one thing. I underestimated how far ahead Andy Reid would be in the experience to be able to script those plays, to draw up the plays to get his dudes open. He did, man. I mean, we started off having a little trouble guarding Kelsey. He burned us for a touchdown. That was really the only offensive score of the entire first half. Because the other one was the fumble recovery. Now, they did miss a field goal. They did miss a field goal on the second possession, I believe, on their second possession. However, when you look at it and you go break down, there was a period in the game to where they put Kansas City in 3 and outs. They basically stopped them for 4 or 5 consecutive possessions in the game. They went into halftime, had that extended halftime. And I feel like Andy went in there with the chalkboard and some chalk, man, and him and Pat came out with a plan.
What does our running game play into this loss, though?
Yeah.
I've been harping that the running game disappeared for us outside of Jalen Hurts. And if we had that running game, they possibly don't get as many possessions as they were able to get. We end up with 101 yards, something like that.
My opinion on what happened was we came out the second half, Kansas City got the ball. If the Eagles can stop them or hold them to a field goal right then and there, I think the Eagles start falling into that. We're going to beat you off the field. We're going to ground you into submission like we've done every other team. But Kansas City came down and scored. Now it's a 1-score game again. And then we go down and we only put up that field goal. So now it's a 10-point game. Here they come again. You know what I'm saying? Then it's they just kept – we could never really we needed that first stop. We needed that. If we would have got that first stop, went down, punished them through the running game and put points on the board, in my opinion, this game is absolutely over at that point. Pat Mahomes or not, they were done. They were going to run out of clock.
Right.
And it's just one of those things, man, to where I don't want to take anything away from Kansas City, man, because they won a very hard-fought game.
They did.
I don't want to take anything away from them because, they came out there and beat a team they were not better than. They weren't. They were not better than that Eagles team out there. But they were better for 30 minutes on that Sunday. In the second half, they were the better football team for that little duration of time. And it was enough to win.
As a coach.
That's the hard part for us as Eagle fans is
because we know we're a better team.
Yeah. We should be working on a repeat performance, as defending champs here. We should be.
Now we're working on getting the ring that we missed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's frustrating because, it's one of those things where, people ask me, did we get out coached? Yes, we got out coached, like no doubt about it. Like, and that's not taking shots at Nick Sirianni. Like, I think Nick's a perfect hire for the Eagles. Like, it's not taking shots at them, but you're talking about a dude that's got 20 years experience, has been to the Super Bowl and felt the heartbreak that Nick Sirianni just felt before. He's had that heartbreak twice, to where Andy's lost Super Bowls.
Hold on, 3 times, right? Three, no, 2.
Is it 3?
He had 04, and then he lost the one against the Bucks.
Yeah,
Bucks. Yeah, so
and you're right. He almost lost 3, but I think Garoppolo gave the game away, and the 49ers won. but you know what I mean? Like, when you look at that, and it's like there's no way around that. Like, a veteran coaching staff caught us because of field condition. Like, they took advantage of the external circumstances. They found an equalizer, and they used the equalizer. That's what they did. Like, it's like, I can't hate on them because it was such a veteran coaching move. But it's
what's the significance of that fumble, Gate?
Overblown, in my opinion. What's Devontae Smith supposed to say? He's supposed to blame it on the defense. Like, what's he supposed to say?
I didn't really listen. Honest to God, truth. He dropped the pass. I thought it was more him talking about himself. Yeah,
I think he's trying to say that, look, the things that we can control as an offense is given on a turnover. That's what we could have controlled as an offense. Could have controlled. We would have absolutely won the game by the way the results ended. Now, honestly, in terms of the flow of no. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the only way I see that making any difference at all is if we would have went down and put points up on the board there and then subtracted those points and then just created it to where it was just entirely too many possessions. Because they came out with a really good game plan to get back. Now, mind you, I'm not saying that if they go into halftime and they're down 3 scores, that that might have knocked them out of the run game. That might have made them go like, okay, we don't have enough clock to make up that difference in the score. Because if they score just one more time, it's over at that point. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I could see that. I can see that evaluation of it. But the bottom line is, man, you took a 2-score lead into halftime. It's like
I feel like because we answered so fast, the significance of the fumble didn't really even affect the momentum. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we got momentum back on our side immediately.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like it's tough, man. Because to ask him it, I think he's giving you an honest answer, but I also it's like kind of like, what do you want him to say? Like, he's not going to say like, oh, I mean, if our defense goes up with 1 stop in the second half of that game, like we're Super Bowl. He's not going to say that. Like,
he's not Joel Embiid.
Yeah, he's not going to say that. Like, he's just not going to do that.
That's my only problem with that's the only problem. I'm probably not a Sixer fan, is because Embiid throw everybody under the
bus. Yeah, firmly, right? Firmly.
He don't care.
Yeah.
He would have been like, if Gannon and the defense could have came up with a stop, we would have won. I did everything I could on offense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nah, but
that's the tough part is like they know it. Like, come on, man. In that locker room, they know it. I mean, I know C.J. Gardner-Johnson's not exactly the person you want, to speak up for at this point in time because of the way it ended. But I mean, C.J. Gardner-Johnson did say it following the Super Bowl. If you would have put us in position to make plays, we'd have been a Super Bowl champion. Now, look, I'm not here as a coach to say like that's the correct take. I mean, you could also just say like, hey man, you could still make a play. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you could still make a play. There were plenty of opportunities to make plays in that game. But it's tough because, like, while I don't like C.J. Gardner-Johnson the way he exited the city, I do not doubt that man put it on the line in the Super Bowl.
Is he going to be a significantly missed piece?
Yeah, like
is he going to be missed?
Man, because people like they look at the gradings and they say like, look, he wasn't graded that highly on PFF. And it's like, okay, like yeah, I mean maybe they're obviously he was learning some stuff, converting to safety and stuff like that. I thought he was way better in terms of like the run fits and stuff in the second half of the season. I thought he became a way more dependable safety, to be honest. We saw in the Super Bowl, he was definitely coming up and playing his run fits correctly. However, it's like, I think the part you're going to miss is like the ability to create turnovers. Like when he got subtracted from the defense, you did notice that. Even though the sack totals went up, we weren't taking the football away as much as we were prior to that. And it's like, it felt like something was definitely missing there a little bit. With that said, I mean, Hassan Reddick kind of went on that crazy run and it's tough, man. Cause like everyone keeps saying like, well, they can't do 70 sacks again. It's like, I'm looking at the depth of this team, and I'm like, well,
Again.
I'm like, they might get pretty close to it, man. Like, I don't think Hassan Reddick's going to take a major step backwards. I mean, I could see Brandon Graham maybe coming back down to reality a little bit. The older player, I could see that. But it's like, I mean, Nolan Smith is going to be coming out there. He's going to get some reps. He's going to get, an opportunity. I mean, I don't know if Derek Barnett's going to be on this roster or not, but it's a
I
favorable
could see
situation.
Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis probably combining together for 10 to 12 sacks somewhere in there.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't know. Like Derek Barnett's the one that interests me. He might get moved, in my opinion, in a couple more days. I think.
You think he'll get traded?
I don't know if he will. Like, I can't say 100% if he will or won't, but I definitely think he's one of the guys that if I'm another football team that lacks a pass rush, I'm looking at this guy going like, look, man, at best, this is probably your fourth, and more likelihood, he's your fifth dude in a rotation. Right. Like, I mean, would you rather? Do you need that kind of depth, or would you much rather get something in return for this because he's going to walk out the door next year anyways?
Right.
The problem is like I will say, like, you can get a guy like Derek Barnett who, I mean, yeah, he's been disappointing throughout his career. There's no doubt about it, but I don't know that there's many fifth defensive ends on rosters that are as good as that. Like, that's a pretty dang good fifth defensive end on a roster.
What do you think his problem is, though? I don't think it's I'm not mad at the offside. I think it's him not living up to that first round grade that they drafted him at. That really gives me that feeling like I don't want you here anymore because you didn't live up to the hype. The same problem I had with Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was pretty high on Reagor. I liked Reagor when he was coming out of college, but I knew the struggles he had with productivity. Like, very athletically gifted guy, but if you went through and you looked and you broke down like 50-yard receiving games and kind of like the ebb and flow of his career, like we wrote it off by saying like he had a lot of trouble at the quarterback position at TCU. That we wrote it off. We made, we said like, hey man, like it's an excuse, but it's a pretty good one. Like, I mean, the dude definitely has some instability at quarterback there. And then he got into Philadelphia, and it's like he started off so strong in that camp, and then it went to. I think the pressure just got to him, man. And I think you could look at someone like Derek Barnett. You could say a lot. Like his rookie season in Philadelphia as a rotational player, he looked apart.
Right.
But then he had to step in and become one of the dudes, and it wasn't the same. Like, I mean, within a couple of years, Josh Sweat caught him and surpassed him.
That was and Hargrave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
Hargrave was what, a run stopper when we drafted him, and then he turned into a pass rusher like sometime recently. I didn't even know he was going to be a pass rusher.
Yeah, he's Hargrave always had a lot of ability in terms of like scheme messed Hargrave up a lot before we got to Philadelphia. Like he was involved in a 2-gap scheme, and like Hargrave can definitely do it if he's putting all of his effort into that basket. But the thing is that doesn't really get you paid. And I think it's the problem a lot of these guys have with that. Like, Fletch. That's why I think Fletch is like, yeah, man, like when I'm on my game, I'm one of the best run stoppers in this game, but I won't get paid to be a run stopper. That's basically what he's saying. Like, I get paid to generate pressures and to get sacks. I won't get paid to be a run stopper.
So, Gabe, I know we've talked about a lot of positions, right? Is there a position out there in free agency? I know you do a lot of like scouting yourself. You're a coach. Is there a guy out there that you think we should bring in and give an opportunity to that most people might not be looking at, or even if it's a trade, most people aren't talking about, most people aren't looking at? Is there a guy out there that can fill a hole and turn this into something that we need?
I'm trying to think. Let me take a look and see who's actually on the market still, because that's, trying to see who's still available at this point in free agency is it's tricky. I would say that the biggest bang for the buck we can get would be defensively, and I think it's at the second level, linebacker and safety. Now, I will say that offensively, like a right guard, I'm trying to look and see who would be available at right guard. And kind of like, is there anyone that is a little under, you know what I mean? Like, because I do think there are some decent guards actually on the market the last time I saw it. There actually was still some decent guards out there.
Okay.
Let me take a look at that guard market again real fast.
Take your time.
I'll tell you.
Everybody talk about the names. It's never like that. People coming out and tell you about the guy that nobody looking at. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Reisner from Denver he'd be an interesting pickup actually for the Eagles. I wouldn't mind Reisner coming in and providing some competition.
He's pretty young too. Ain't he just in the 28-ish range?
He's like 27, 28-ish. Yeah. He's pretty young. A lot of these guys are a little older, a little longer in the tooth. I mean, you can make it for a while in the NFL like that, to be honest, but man, so many dudes came off the board. Like even Matt Pryor got another deal again. Like it's crazy just how like these dudes come off the board, man, quick. Like they don't make it long. I mean, Nate Herbert got a pretty decent deal. Yeah, I would say at right guard, a guy that like Dalton Reisner, formerly of the Broncos. I think he's had a couple rough years, but I mean, at his best, he was really good. He's actually a really good football player, to be honest with you. Let me take a look at this linebacker market because I think linebacker is another sneaky one that I do wonder how they feel about the linebacker. Like, I wonder if they feel comfortable with like the depth they have. You know what I mean? Because like they didn't really address it that much in the draft. I mean, they signed an undrafted free agent. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't seem like a spot where they took a lot of interest in it, to be honest. Let me just do linebacker instead of outside. I honestly think they could. They got guys that could pretty much play either spot. We're not at that type of market. Let me move down a little bit. I heard a lot about Leonard Floyd. He's more of a pass rusher, to be honest.
Right.
Zach Cunningham's a undersized inside backer, formerly of the Tennessee Titans. Good coverage guy. Deion Jones, good veteran name out there. Miles Jack, I've heard that one 1,000 times.
What you think about that one?
Talented. Never really lived up to the talent, though. Never lived up to the full billing of the talent. I mean, if you're looking at a guy that could potentially be a starter or at least be a security blanket as the third dude in a rotation, be that if someone gets hurt, you got a solution, you got an answer. I do like Miles Jack. It's just a matter of like, what would that contract cost you? Like, what is he looking for? Why is he still on the market? He's a guy like Jayon Brown, formerly of the Raiders. I think that's an interesting name for the Eagles. Gerard Davis, bigger guy. Not really. Not overly. Nick Kwiatkowski, played most recently with the Falcons. He used to be a Bear. He's a guy a little older, but would definitely like as a third guy, like that kind of backup role. I think he would be a decent player, actually.
Okay.
I would not, you don't want him. Ideally, you don't want him starting, but he does have experience at least. You know what I mean? Like
you're looking at more the third backer, right?
I am, because I think they feel good about what they have, but whether that'll work ultimately is hard to say. But I think they feel really good about having Nakobe Dean step up and play that role. I think they feel pretty good about having Nicholas Morrow out there as kind of taking over the Kaiser White role. I just think that where they don't have any solutions known is the key word. Like a guy could step up and fill it is. Right. Who's that third guy? Like who's your insurance policy in case of an injury? I mean, is it really Davion Taylor, Sean Bradley? Like what is it? I mean, I think that's a part where it's like really unknown. Was that guy's name Ben Van Summerlin or something like that?
Summerlin. Yeah, Summerlin. He could be all right. I think he's going to be all right. I mean, I heard he had all the measurables and he was pretty athletic, but
yeah, he's gifted athletically, but
undersized though, right?
Yeah, I'd be a little concerned with how he would fit. I mean, to be fair, like another one of these dudes that doesn't have great arm reach. He's not the tallest dude in the world, but he's fast, lightning fast. And I mean, the Eagles just do not care about the prototypical linebacker. They just don't. And we talked about this earlier, but they don't. They don't care about getting that 6'2", 235-pound backer with 32-inch or greater arm reach. They don't care about it. They don't. Like when they draft a guy, it's close to that. Like Davion Taylor is close to those numbers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but really and honestly, like they don't prioritize it in terms of like where you could actually get the player. Like, you know what I mean? Like they just don't care. They really don't. They value that instinct and that twitch more than they value the prototypical size. Okay.
So Ohana asked us, which players do you guys think will have a breakout season? I think Avonte Maddox could. I think if he will stay healthy. I also think Jordan Mailata could have a Pro Bowl season. I'll let you go first, Gate. Who you think could have a breakout season on the offense and then one on the defense?
Defensively, Jordan Davis, man. I think Jordan Davis is going to be better than people think.
You Stiller.
Yeah, I think Jordan Davis is going to be better than people think, man. I do. I think like you're going to notice the effect he's going to have on the run game, but I think you're going to start to see little pieces of a pass rush develop with him. He had a couple of plays on the season last year to where he applied. He was one of the only guys that got pressure on Mahomes in the Super Bowl, to be honest.
Almost had him. He got away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like, it's kind of like, I think he's a guy that's due to kind of like start, people go like, oh man, like you know what? People might have maybe jumped off that bandwagon a little too soon. Like, mind you, it's mostly not Eagle fans that are, but all of a sudden this guy went from being like generational talent to where like, well, we did have concerns about his shape and if he could, if he could endure NFL seasons. Like, man, I heard Greg Cosell say that. I brought that up that, Georgia uses a heavy rotation, but seems like there's a lot of revisionist history from a lot of these other analysts, to be honest. Offensively, I'll let you go defensively, then we'll go offensively.
I was gonna go Jordan Davis, but now I have to change it up, and I'm gonna go Sidney Brown, man. I think Sidney. Well, no, breakout season would have to be somebody that was already on the roster.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go James Bradbury.
James Bradbury.
He's very quiet, and I feel like all the ridicule from that Super Bowl is gonna bring out a new person for him. Mm-hmm. He's gonna be locked in, and I think game 1. He's going to ask for a lot of those one-on-ones with TikTok boy.
I'll say this. I mean, I think he's in line for a redemption season. It's hard. It's like he's a second team All-Pro.
Yeah, James
Bradbury was. But, I mean, he did get dissed a lot, man, down the stretch. The 49ers tried to diss him, and then the Chiefs dissed him. And it's like, man, I mean, this dude's a really good coverage. He's a really good coverage corner. Like, I don't understand it personally, but.
Didn't Debo call him trash?
Yeah, basically. If he didn't say it in exact words, like it's basically what he was implying. I mean, it's tough, man. Offensively, this is where I think it's really tough to predict. I won't go old line just because I think that's tough to it's tough to call it. But what I will say is, my guy down in the comments said Goddard. That would be an easy one, but I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to say that the real redemption story offensively. And I know this is not like a breakout player in terms of like he's going to have 1,000-yard season and 70 catches.
But I know where you're going here.
Quez Watkins, man. I think Quez has got to redeem himself because, number one, he's in a contract year. But number two, the only thing the Eagles have done thus far is bring in a little competition. They didn't outright replace him. They could have definitely spent some draft capital and went out there and tried to replace him, and they didn't do it. So I kind of look at that when I'm saying to myself, like, man, like he's a guy that I think people are down on, and rightfully so, because of just, he was a big part of why we lost the Washington game, to be honest.
He was a very big part of that loss.
Yeah. And then he didn't really drop that many people. Like, he didn't drop as many passes as people think, but the one pass that he dropped was so memorable because it was in the Super Bowl.
Magnitude. I think it was the magnitude, Gate. Yeah. It had to be magnitude of drops, like the position of the drop. Everybody's seen it.
Yeah, like it kind of just like he crossed his arms, went through his arms. It was like such a bad play on screen. He's a guy that I look at. I'm like, okay, what does he offer your offense? He spaces. He gives you the spacing because you have to keep someone up and above him. You cannot let him just run by somebody because you can sit there and say that, oh, you don't need to cover that guy. Okay. Like that's a legit 4.3 speed guy out there. Like
he is fast.
Yeah, like that's the one redeemable attribute that young man has is that he's longer in the frame than I think people realize. He's a little bit more lankier than I think people get, and he's got serious speed. Like he will space a defense out because they're going to have to keep someone up top in coverage there.
You see what happened this year? A lot of times when they dropped that safety and they left him out there. He just got behind him.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's the tough part. Is like I look at the offense and it's like, man, like DeAndre Swift just came here, so we can't say DeAndre Swift. I mean, I really, really like Kenneth Gainwell, but in my opinion, if they viewed Kenneth Gainwell as the solution,
it wouldn't be two guys brought in.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you bring one guy in to push competition, but you don't bring two guys in. And one of those guys is pretty similar. I mean, bigger frame, but similar testing numbers, similar type of player, and like what he does. Like I will say, Kenneth Gainwell's a little bit more north-south than DeAndre Swift is, but they're both basically receiving backs. I mean, that's really what they are. So I mean, like to me, I kind of look at that one. I'm like, there's not a lot of options. Like
you might not like my option, but I'm gonna say I'm gonna have to go with Jalen Hurts.
Why do you say? So are you referring to because of the chatter on Twitter around Dak being so much better and people not realizing that the the way that we manhandled teams affected his output statistically? Is that what you're leaning into? Is that a lot of statistical categories were held back by the fact that we pounded teams?
I think last year was like the beginning of the growth development stage. I feel like he had just hit that first pedestal of where I'm going, and I feel like it's so much more. I feel like he's going to expand his game to a wider. Like, I think this year it could be a 35, 40 touchdown if he wanted it to season, but we don't play football in that manner. People don't understand that we use our running game to make a better passing game.
Yeah, I agree.
So I do think his passing numbers will go up. I think his passing touchdowns will go up. And I think his running will go down. But I think overall he will be a better quarterback this year than he was last year.
See, and that's the crazy thing is I heard somebody was on Twitter the other day and they were saying about basically what they were saying is that, oh, we've seen this story play out before. Colin Kaepernick reached the Super Bowl. I didn't like their analysis because there's a lot of complexity behind the Colin Kaepernick situation. But then, that faded out, right? RJ3 had that one really, really good year in Washington. It's like, yeah, but he also had like a Carson Wentz level life-altering injury to a knee. Like, it's not like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not all apples to apples. With
he said, and didn't he say listening to him, didn't he say he came back early?
Yeah, he did. RJ3, that's what he said recently. That he, because I think RJ3 was the one who did the interview with all the Eagles quarterbacks, right? With Vic and Abner. Like, wasn't he the one that was doing the? And like to me, it's like, okay, like you can think that, but it does bother me because like, what bothers me is that it's not just Cowboy fans saying this crap. Tell me the big difference stylistically with the way that they played between Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones. Josh Allen might have a bazooka for an arm, but stylistically,
they play the same.
Different. You know what I mean? Like, but it doesn't get said about the other two guys. One of those guys is irrelevant because he hasn't done enough to really even be in a conversation yet, in my opinion. But like the other guy who's a really good football player has not elevated his team to what the other guy just did, and Jalen Hurts. Like those conversations, like to me, like if he puts this team back in the NFC Championship game again. And God forbid if Jalen Hurts hoists that Super Bowl trophy at the end of this year, we're going to have to put suicide watch on some Cowboy fans and content creators.
They're going to be hurt, boy. They're going to hate it.
They're going to be down, like down as we've ever seen them. Like it's going to be real hard for them to look us in the eyes anymore.
They do a lot of talking about that 5 Super Bowl, but we get 2 in the matter of less than 10 years, and y'all ain't had an NFC Championship appearance in 28 of them.
Yeah,
it could get ugly out here in these streets for Cowboys.
And that's the crazy thing to me is like I hear these and they're saying all this stuff and they're talking about like, oh, like look, no shade at Josh Allen because Josh Allen is built like a linebacker way, but Josh Allen physical specimen. I get it, but Josh Allen in the way that he plays through contact is not the same as Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is far smarter about the way that he goes about contact than Josh Allen. Josh Allen tries to straight run people over. Jalen will do that around the goal line, but he's not out there in the middle of the field at the 50 trying to run through dudes.
Right.
Like, he's not trying to do that. Like he's smart about doing that. And it's like I hear people say these like, Cam Newton broke down. It's like, well, to begin with, Cam Newton had more than just one season, and he did have like a 15-win season on top of that. Like, but also like there was more than just Cam Newton that went wrong with the Carolina Panthers.
His teams got destroyed after that Super Bowl run. People don't want to even admit like
I live in North Carolina. Like, yo, man, like it's complex, man. Like I get to see these games when I'm not watching the Eagles game. I get to see the Panthers play. like I get to see them play quite often, and it's like, yo, that's not like it's far more complex than that. Like
they took a lot of his talent away, and they added a workload to him. And then they just wore him down. They did the listen. People don't notice, but RG3 and Cam are almost alike. Mm-hmm. But except it happened to RG3 way earlier than it happened to Cam.
Yeah,
they ran them boys into the ground. If you watch a lot of the late Cam Newton, it wasn't a lot of passing because he didn't have receiving targets. It was a lot of running. You traded his best receiving target for what? Pennies on a dollar.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, it bothers me when people talk about that kind of stuff because, like, it's like, yeah, like there's complexity behind these things. Like, it's not. Look, I've watched players elevate teams. You were in Wake County for a while. I don't know if you were there during the Russell Wilson years at NC State, but
Yes, sir.
come on, man, that dude
And I'm
elevated that entire
and
team.
I'm a Florida State fan, so imagine how many
Yeah.
heartbreaks he gave me.
Exactly. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he elevated that entire team. Like, it was Russell Wilson, and that was it. like for real. I mean, he really didn't play with anything around him, honestly. I mean, don't get me wrong. NC State does produce some really good defensive linemen. They got a knack for developing offensive linemen, but I mean, the skill position, they do hit every now and then. You know, they get to Torrey Holt every great once in a while. You know, Jericho Cotries and those dudes that do come through NC State. But like, I mean, he didn't play with that much, man, and he got forced out for Mike Glennon. People forget that, man. Mike Glennon. And I get college politics are way different from professional because
way different.
Well,
now they're getting closer. Now they're getting closer.
Yeah. Like
now you're getting closer because you're getting paid.
Yeah. But like when you look at that, it's like, man, like it's crazy to think that, like, you know, like I've seen these dudes do this. And it's like I keep hearing all these talking points, like, oh, if they look at D-Hop, like you can't say nothing about Dak needing help around him. It's like, right. But the thing is like Jalen took the help around him and elevated it into a Super Bowl appearance.
Hold on, Gate. This has been my argument with the Cowboy fans. Y'all said he needed all this help. Every receiver on his team that stayed healthy had career numbers. Years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So he elevated his game to elevate their game. Yeah. Like how did I seen Dak ain't progressing like Jalen Hurts was at the beginning of his career. And then y'all want to bring up 30 touchdowns. But in the first 3 years of Dak Prescott, he didn't throw 30 touchdowns either.
Exactly. He's only done like twice in his career.
It's weird, man. They want to put my quarterback pedestal way up here. He got to reach this to be great. Mm-hmm. He doesn't though.
Well, I'll pull back and say this to Cowboy fans when they say that to me. Like, you want to talk about this? He's done that twice in his career. He's thrown 30 touchdowns, right? How many times has he done that without Amari Cooper, though?
Probably zero.
Both of those times it was achieved after they got Amari Cooper. Now, to be fair, he was playing really good in 2018 before Amari got there, but Amari took them from here and elevated them to here offensively. And there's a reason why they went out there and got Amari Cooper, like, in the first place. Like, so to me, it's like, look, I get CeeDee Lamb is a really good football player. But, man, they made a huge mistake letting Amari Cooper go for what they let him go for.
Peanuts.
Yeah, it was a big-time mistake. And, look, I'm not saying Brandon Cooks is a bad player. I would categorize him as a 3-layer. He can play the short, he can play the intermediate, he can play the deep ball. But I don't think he's a difference maker. I don't look at Brandon Cooks and think to myself, like, that's a difference maker in an offense. Is he competent? Sure. Is he better than what they had in terms of the rotation last year? Yeah, they were laughable at wide receiver last year outside of Lamb, to be honest. But, like, I look at that and I think to myself, like, people are missing the forest for the trees. There's missing the forest for the trees. Like, all the young quarterbacks who have elevated and got to the Super Bowl on their rookie contracts recently, how did they get there? Like, the Bengals spent a top 10 pick, a top 5 pick on Jamar Chase when they needed desperate offensive line play. They have T. Higgins. They have Tyler Boyd. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Joe Mixon. Like, are you kidding me? That team is loaded. Like, there's a reason why Joe Burrow was able to come back from that injury and then all of a sudden take off
and go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, like, come on, man. Jalen Hurts. Like, yeah, we were stacked, no doubt about it. Dallas Goedert.
All right. The question of the night. I didn't get to it. EC1, you didn't let me finish. It was gonna be my closing question for Gate, but I'm gonna give it to him now. Mm-hmm. Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts, and whoever you pick, can you explain to me why?
See, man, it's not apples to apples because we're ACC guys, man. I'm an NC State guy. You're a Florida State guy. I don't like Louisville.
I don't either.
I'm gonna tell you right from the jump, it's Jalen Hurts, and he's the Eagles quarterback. So it's not even a fair fight with me, honestly, because I'm gonna tell you straightforward, like, nah, you can miss me on Lamar. Now, Lamar's a good player, man. I mean, truth be told, Lamar, like, it's not even a fair assessment because there's not enough weapons around Lamar to adequately grade it. To say, like, if he could, you know what I mean? Like, he's dynamic as a quarterback. He's got a really great tight end there. They're trying to, the young man they drafted a couple of years ago at receiver is pretty good, but he got injured.
Bateman.
Bateman. Yeah. I think he was out of Minnesota, wasn't he?
I can't remember, but I think so. I think he is from Minnesota or somewhere over there.
Yeah. Like, they needed more pieces, man. They needed more pieces around him. Like, it didn't help that they traded out Hollywood Brown. It didn't, like they started detracting from the team on him and then like got involved in a huge contract dispute, which is not good for the organization. And it's, you're looking at it, it's like, well, why would I give you a hometown discount? Like, it ain't like you added talent around me. Like, I think their solution late last year, but then they add D-Jax.
Yeah, they added D-Jax. They brought in what's it called too? Dez Bryant. Brought a bunch of old dudes and said, hey, we gave you talent. But this year, didn't they get Zay Flowers? Now they got OBJ.
Zay, we're ACC guys, so we know Zay's a beast. Zay a headache, bro. Zay is a headache to guard.
If they can use him right.
Yeah, he's a headache, man.
I think that was a lot of problem with
single-handedly last year.
How bad did he go off on y'all? Didn't he had like what 200 and something all-purpose yards against y'all, didn't he?
Yeah, it was something ridiculous like that. Like, the dude just straight smacked us, man. And we were definitely supposed to win that game. I was listening to it, man. I was actually like, I was working. I was listening to the game. I was ticked, bro. I was so mad, man. I was like, yo, I can't stand Zach. That dude is nasty, though, man. He is. Everyone was talking about Jordan Addison last year, and everyone forgot about Zay Flowers. The dude's he's a beast, man. Everyone forgets Jordan Addison used to play at Pitt. He was what really gave Kenny Pickett a lot of those highlight reels, to be real with you. But
hey, Travis, I can't agree with you that Lamar is more athletic than Hurts. I'll say he's more agile in places. But I seen Hurts last year make a few people miss in that open field and go for touchdowns.
Yeah,
20 yards out. That Packers game really showed me something.
Yeah. Look, I think it depends upon how you're trying to define the athleticism. Like, you can make some nuanced arguments around it. Same time, Lamar's not. He's definitely not squatting 600 pounds. Like,
no.
Like that's not Lamar's game. With that said, though, Lamar's closest thing that I've seen to Michael Vick since like really Colin Kaepernick. To be honest,
that dude.
Listen,
like I have no knock on Lamar game, y'all. Don't get it twisted. I like Lamar Jackson, but I don't think he's better than Hurts. And it's a lot of factors to the situation, like the leadership, the ability to get better season to season. The team orientation of the contract he just signed, like he made sure team was first. He made sure his guys was first. I looked at some of those hits by Lamar Jackson. That team is not going to be in a great position in a few years. They're going to be hurting, and they're not going to have. And he's going to be back in the same position he's complaining about right now. No pieces.
Jalen Hurts took a city where half of the fan base absolutely did not want him as the starting quarterback. And I'll be upfront and honest. Like when it originally happened, like, bro, we had just paid Carson Wentz. Like, what are we doing here? Like, that was my thought. Like, what are we honestly doing here? Like, what is happening? But then, like, you see this young man, he starts getting in games. He starts jumping on the podium and talking. It's like, okay, like, how do you not back him? Like, there's a reason why he can walk into a locker room and just immediately elevate himself into a leadership role. And he's not trying to be the leader.
No.
It's just people are gravitating towards him. And like, it's not hard to see it once you see it. Like, look, no shade at Carson. I supported Carson when he was here with the Philadelphia Eagles.
100%.
However, Carson on his best day is nowhere near Jalen Hurts on his worst day as a leader. It's just the facts. Like, it's just not. It's not. And I know people think that stuff doesn't matter. I'm going to say it definitely matters, especially when you got delicate situations like distributing the ball. Like having a dude who has a lot of gravitational pull and is a true leader and people know has the best interest of the team in mind can help you smooth over things like that.
But Gay, you want to know what I think? I feel like Howie is manufacturing chemistry. He's bringing in guys that played with Jalen who already had that role of following him as him being their quarterback already. He brought in Rambo. He brought in Hazelwood. He brought in Calcaterra. You know what I'm saying? Landon Dickerson.
The dude that played running back. He was on the practice squad last year.
Oh, Trey Sermon.
Trey Sermon and the other dude.
Who was the other guy?
Hang on, let me look it up for you real quick. I don't even remember because he's got like glasses and stuff, but he's bigger back too.
But as you look for that dude, right? He's manufacturing so much natural chemistry. It's gonna be easy for guys to fall in and play their spot. Kennedy Brooks. Oh yeah. I thought, what happened to him? He was supposed to get PT.
He's still technically on the team, but I mean,
okay, still practice squad guy.
I think it's definitely a long shot to get on now. Like, I mean, they're stacked. They're absolutely stacked. I mean, it's tough, man, because like it's like not only is he getting guys that have played with Jalen before, and we're talking about filling out the roster offensively on the deep end of stuff. Like they're identifying these dudes, but you also have guys who want to come play with them. Like, remember the argument last year? Everyone kept trying to tell us nobody wanted to play. Nobody wanted to play with Jalen Hurts. Nobody wanted to play with Jalen Hurts, but one guy did. One guy did.
Brown.
Yeah.
Hold on, but that's the narrative behind Lamar too. That's why they said Hollywood left. They said he wasn't a great passer, and the offense was pretty much run heavy. But now I feel like the same thing happened last year to Jalen Hurts is what's gonna happen this year. Lamar, he gonna shut them all up, and they're gonna be like, "Oh well, he had a lot of talent. He had help."
Yeah, see, that's the tough part, man. It's like when people do like the top 10 quarterback rank. I hate doing that. I hate doing that just because like it's so easy to get persuaded by one season, and then like, you know what I'm saying, like really drop a guy like Aaron Rodgers. Like right now, if you were to ask me, skill set for skill set, is he a top 5 quarterback? Of course, but man, he wasn't a top 5 quarterback on the 2022 season.
No.
Like, you know what I mean? So like it's difficult because like he's walking into a really good situation with the Jets.
I think what Shady said was the best thing to evaluate it. He was like, I need to see 2 years to drop him out of my top 10.
It's fair. I think it's fair because the level and caliber of player you're dealing with. That's like when people ask me about like when they say like Dak, they're like, yo, do you still have Dak as like a top 10, top 12 quarterback? Yeah. Like, yeah. I mean, he threw a lot of picks, but he also like after he threw the picks, he elevated teams, still won games. But also you can make the argument of it's just not that many good quarterbacks.
Like I had a problem doing my top 10. Like when I did my top 10, I had a lot of people. I was like, do I put them in? Do I take them out? Do I put them in?
Yeah, like you know, over the last couple of years, it was kind of like, I mean, if you leave Dak out, what are you leaving him out for? Like Ben Roethlisberger, like maybe 5 years ago, but not current Ben.
No,
like, you know what I mean? Like the last couple of years, you kind of had those type of situations. Like, and then I look at it now, and it's like, okay, like we know that there's some real ballers like Patrick Mahomes. You know, I hate when people put Josh Allen second. I don't think he's the second best quarterback personally.
I don't either.
I think it's Joe Burrow. I think it's the second dude, and I think it's Jalen. And I think it's everybody else, in my opinion.
I think those three top guys are interchangeable.
Yeah, I'm not even opposed if someone says that Joe Burrow might be the better quarterback, but Jalen's the better player.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to that, to say that. And it's like, to me, like, it's those 3 guys, and then I'm sorry, until a lot of these other dudes prove it, it's everybody else.
Like, I feel like Josh Allen gets a lot of overhyped, but I feel like he's a Dollar Tree version of Brett Favre, man.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, look, he's a good player. I mean, the dude's physically gifted. He's all those attributes. He's got all that stuff. But like, it's not like he didn't have a really great defensive mind there. I mean, he had a head coach that's defensively gifted, and he had a defensive coordinator for a while there that was really gifted, Frazier. Then they had talent defensively. You know, now I know that they took some pretty serious injuries last year, and it maybe derailed them defensively a little bit. I know he's never really had a full supporting cast along the offensive line in the running game. I get that, but I mean, Gabe Davis is like your second or third option. Ain't bad. Dude can play. Like, that's a big offensive, and they won that.
My only problem with Gabe is consistency.
Yeah, but
and I don't know if it's more Gabe or if it's Josh.
Yeah, it's right, exactly. Like,
because I feel like Josh fell in love with Stephon too much, and he tried to because he get chewed out by Stephon, so he tried to go out and fall in love with him, and then you forget that Gabe is wide open, streaking down the sideline. Like,
yeah. Like for me, when I look at Josh Allen, what I always say is that I think he's incredibly talented, but I think people I think people took a step too far when they tried to say that Josh Allen had made this crazy leap in terms of being able to read defenses. I think he took a leap. I don't think it was the leap that you just saw from Jalen Hurts. I'm just going to put that out there. Like, that's
thank you.
Like,
I'm clipping that.
I still think that young man has a long way to go, Josh Allen, in terms of reading coverage, especially leverage on his players. I think there's a part of him that has that Carson Wentz mentality of, I can make a play with my arm. I think that's definitely a part of his game.
It's a Carson Brett Favre mentality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, gunslingers. We're gonna go out there and we're gonna make a play anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you remember back on the 2020 season where I think it was the 19 season, to where it was that Washington game, to where Carson had a wide open read. I think it was Zach Ertz cut in on a he had like an option route where he cut in and he was wide open in the end zone, and Carson ducked a sack, rolled outside and threaded the needle on it past the Miles Sanders and got all kinds of praise for it. I mean, we were all like, "Whoa, that dude's arm is nuts." But beneath the surface, one had to have felt a little way like,
simplest read.
Yeah, like you could have made that play a lot easier. Like you didn't need to make that level of play because something that was already there that would have been a lot easier and way more efficient as a quarterback. Like, it's stuff like that you see on Josh Allen's game where it's kind of like, I don't have that guy rated as highly as other people do. Like, dude's gifted, man. I don't know anyone has the arm talent he has, but
so where is he on your list?
I struggle because my
6 to 10 range?
If you surround Lamar Jackson with equal amounts of talent, I think Baltimore would be a tough offense to stop.
I think so too. Cause I think he has the arm talent. I watched him beat my team, carve me up many times at Louisville.
Yeah,
I think he's a better player now than he was then. I think he could throw the ball.
Yeah, I mean, early on at Louisville, like it was a one-trick pony with him, but no one could stop that trick. And then he started developing, and then they thought, they had like two quarterbacks after Lamar that they thought were going to make that jump, and they didn't. Like, because Lamar is Lamar for a reason. Like, yeah, that's going to be another one too, man. All these games in the back half of the season. Man, there's a stretch we got.
What do you think of that stretch? I was just going to ask you about that. The Chiefs, 49ers, Cowboys, Bills, all in that little stretch. What do you think about that stretch? Do you think that stretch is a setup?
It's like a 6-7 game stretch. Yeah, like I think they come out, I don't know, 4-2, 4-3 over that stretch. Like, look out.
Second person to say that.
Look out. Like, that team is going to be, it's going to be number one, it's going to be battle tested. And, all the crap they talked about us last year, you won't be able to say that this year. Like,
right.
You're not going to be able to say that this year because this team's about to be really battle tested on the back half of the season. And I still think people are sleeping on the schedule in the first half. I still think there's tougher games than people think, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think that Miami game, that Jets game, that Patriots game.
Yeah.
Is iffy.
I don't think those are easy games at all, to be honest.
Okay, the stretch we talking about right now is Chiefs, Bills, Niners, Cowboys, Seahawks, Giants.
And we haven't won a lot in Seattle either. That's the other side to that. We are better than the Seahawks. We should win that game. But man, we've had a hard time winning there. We've had a
Have we ever beat them in Seattle?
I'd have to look it up, man. It hasn't been.
I think I heard a stat, but I might be wrong. I know the Jets have never beat us, but I thought we hadn't ever beat Seattle in Seattle.
That might be true. I know it's been if we have beat them, it's been a very long time. Because especially recently, they've owned us. They've owned us, man. We due for some payback.
Well, Gate City, we hitting an hour and 30 minutes, man. So just give me your closing remarks, anything you want me to look out for. Tell the people where they can find you at. Tell the people what you got coming so everybody can tap in, man. Because Gate City listen, if you really want to know about these players, man, you have to be cerebral. You got to.
So upcoming video. I'm going to release it tomorrow, guys. I'm still editing it. I'm going to do a video on Mekhi Garner, who's an undrafted free agent, came out of LSU, big physical guy. We talked a little bit about him earlier in the show, but if you know my style of editing and what I do, it's never just about a single player. So I'm going to talk about attributes at the cornerback position. I'm going to probably give you some type of little, kind of like did you know quiz type thing at the beginning of the video where I'm going to bring in some kind of historical fact and placement about things. I'll give the giveaway, guys. We're going to talk about Pat Mahomes and the Super Bowl performance at the very beginning of the video. And then we're going to play a game. I call it 2 truths and a lie. So you guys got to identify the lie in the beginning of the video. In terms of a player to watch, I'll just say watch that secondary competition, guys. We should know the 6 players. We should have a pretty good feel for who the 6 players are at the cornerback position, not including safeties. However, man, all you need is for Greedy Williams to leave that door just a little ajar, just a little open, and have an Eli Ricks or a Mekhi Garner or a Josh Jobe or somebody walk through that door, man. It could get real interesting in camp. This could be like that to me. I'm real excited to see number one, the backup quarterback competition at that 3rd and 4th spot. Because I think that's going to make camp in preseason actually worth watching again. Because, like, bro, these preseason games have not been worth watching any Nick Sirianni. I'm not going to lie.
We got Ravens. We got Lamar and Ravens. We won.
Yeah, like, I think there's a really interesting running back battle. I think there's a really, really interesting tight end battle. I think the back end of the wide receiver roster is going to be interesting to watch. I think the quarterback spot, I think you got the secondary to where you're going to have safeties that are going to be fighting to try to make, like Kevon Wallace and those guys. Like, man, they got to play their way onto the roster. They're going to make it this year. I don't think they're just going to be awarded that spot. So, like, the secondary and how these corners play, like, to me, like, that's something to watch going forward, guys. Like, we're going to have this dead period at the end of June, beginning of July. It sucks, man. I hate that as a sports commentary guy. Like, it's like the worst time of the year, man. It's like everyone just basically goes on vacation because there's just like no point. But then when we get to the end of July and we get back into August, man, we start getting back in that football mode. That's what I'm going to look out for in terms of moves the Eagles might make because, we got June 1st coming up. I'm curious what they do at right guard if they make a signing following the OTAs. So it may not be like, in a couple of days. It might not be until the end of next week or the following week. But after OTAs, do they make a play at right guard? Do they bring in a veteran guy? I'll say that linebacker could be addressed. Safety could be addressed. Those are positions I think that they might look to improve upon the depth if they can. Still got to be willing, guys to come in, willing trade partners, all that stuff. But yeah, man, I mean, to be honest with you, in terms of prediction for what the Eagles are going to do, I think we're the number 1 seed in the NFC again.
I think so too. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I think it's the number 1 seed. I do. I don't think Dallas is going to go down without a fight. I think we struggle playing Dallas in Arlington. But to be honest, I think we're better than Dallas. I think we're better than San Francisco. I think we're better than anyone the NFC North has to offer. In the NFC South, like I'm watching Carolina. I think that team might be a little better than people suspect. But I look at the NFC picture right now, and it looks like to me as if it's Philly, and the only other way any other team's going to rise up is if we have a slip up in terms of the schedule to where we go on a bad run in the schedule. I think it's the only chance that the NFC has because I think this is clearly the best team in the NFC.
I think the AFC got to take us out for them, to be honest.
Exactly. I think you're right.
They're going to have to get a lot of help.
I mean, it doesn't help. Like, if you look at the games we have to play, right? We got Miami, we got Buffalo, we got the Jets. Like, like right there, you got New England, who New England's probably the most winnable game of those.
Yeah.
Then you look past that, we get Kansas City. It's like, I mean, the AFC schedule, man, they stacked us pretty hard on this one. Like, we definitely caught the short end of the stick on that in terms of the AFC. But that said, man, I look at the NFC and it's like that at least 3 out of those 5 teams beat us. Because if 3 out of those 5 teams can't beat us, I think we're going to run through the NFC.
I think so too. Hey man, y'all go like, subscribe, comment. Hey, they asked, do you have a video on Eli Ricks coming?
I already have one out.
So already a video out. So we'll check that video out. And man, I appreciate you for coming through, bro. It was a fun thing. I was informed. I've been trying to catch up with you so I can get informed because I want to know a lot of this stuff. Because I really started watching you. I started learning that the measurables for a guard to a tackle to a center, all 3 are different. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I understand the responsibility is obviously different, but it's very different. And then when I watch you, and I started realizing that I need to stop watching these 40 times and look at these splits because 40 times don't do nothing for you. Even though it helps you to know how fast one person can run in a straight line, it doesn't tell you much about the player. So you helped me a lot, bro.
Yeah, 40 times go and it's like the best way I always tell people is like not every 4-3 is the same. Like, and you have to know how the splits broke down in terms of like where that 4-3 was. Like, if you're a receiver, you look at the 49ers. I'll give you this one last gem before we walk off of here about 40 times. The 49ers in their front office have a belief that they value in terms of the 40 splits. They value what they call the flying 20, which is the back end of that 40-yard dash, because they think that's where separation gets created. That's how they see it. While other teams might look at it and say, depending upon system and what they're doing, they value more of that 10 split. Can they release quickly off the line? Or, what's the explosive? You know me, I love the explosive measurements. Like with your 10 split, with your vertical, with your broad jump. What kind of an explosive athlete are you? And then I can get into the nuances of like where you are from a technical standpoint at releasing off the line of scrimmage and like proper footwork and like, do you attack the leverage of the corner, all that kind of stuff. As a receiver, like it's complex, right? Like you can look at a guy like Deshaun Jackson and say like, okay, what makes Deshaun Jackson? What makes this, you know what I'm saying? Like it's interesting to see those numbers and see how they stack differently, even though they might have ran a 4.4. Like this guy might have ran a 4.4. That dude might have ran a 4.4, but they could be completely different 4.4s.
D-Jack was one of the most explosive players, as you would say, that I've seen come through for a long time.
D-Jax was nuts, man.
And now he want to play. He talking about calling him week 17 for a playoff run. I haven't seen him get past. I haven't seen him get past 2 games, so I'm a little scared.
Yeah, I mean, we only really need him for 3. Like,
we only need you for 3. Matter of fact, we'll call you week 19. Yeah, after the game's over with and we going into the playoffs after the bye, we'll catch you in the divisional run.
We'll get you the play sheet around week 16, week 17. Be ready with the system by week 19. We'll be ready to go. Yeah, I mean, D-Jax he was different, man. I mean, it's so weird because like it's so hard to explain like how you tracking a football from that position the way that Deshaun did. Like people ask, like, is it coachable? Like, yeah, it's coachable, like how to get the ball in over the shoulder and catch it correctly. However, it's not coachable to where how Deshaun could just go running even with you, then all of a sudden he speeds by you.
Speed control.
Like you can't coach that. Like that's not, you know what I mean? Like that's just not. It's not the same thing. Like that's an explosive trait.
He had speed control. I've seen him like literally slow down, but you can't tell, and he like readjusts his body to get to the ball right in time. He pulled
later in his career, I thought he got really good at cutting off routes and coming back for comeback routes, stuff like that. Things like that to kind of like bail out the quarterbacks. I thought that was a part of his game that had really developed by the time he came back to Philly a second time. We just couldn't keep him on the field. That's the part to me. Like if there was any guy I would love to get a ring for and have him in Philadelphia, get that ring, it would be D-Jax.
D-Jack and Shady, but Shady already got the ring, so it's not as memorable. But D-Jack for sure.
Yeah, he still stays retiring as an Eagle though, so
we'll take that one day and we'll enjoy it. You know what I'm saying? We appreciate it. But I appreciate you for coming out, Gate. Hey y'all, until next time.
Philly fam, I'm back.